hello everyone. Welcome to the TIFF press conference for 50/50. I'm Maria Rally, your press conference manager. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. Once we get everyone from the cast out here, we're going to have them stand on the podium with about 60 seconds of flash photography. Then we ask for the photographers to move back behind the risers. Please keep the center aisle cleared for volunteers with microphones for questions. Members of the media, please stand and identify yourself and your media outlet before you ask a question. Everybody make sure your cell phones are off. And just so you know, the press conference is being streamed live at www.tiff.net/festival. And it is now my great pleasure to welcome the director, screenwriter, and cast of 50/50, as well as our moderator, Johanna Schneller. Thanks.
Group shot.
Bring it in, Bryce.
Group
Come on.
shot. Come on.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Right here, please.
Thank you. So hi, I'd like to welcome everybody to the TIFF 2011 press conference for the film 50/50. And we're really thrilled to have such a great lineup with us today. To my far right, we have the screenwriter, Will Reiser. Next to him is Bryce Dallas Howard, who plays the maybe not so great girlfriend of the protagonist. Next to her is Anna Kendrick, who plays a therapist in training. Obviously, next to her is Seth Rogen, one of the two big stars of the film. Unfortunately, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the other star, is in the car on the way from the airport right now, so he'll be back later. And to my right is the director, Jonathan Levine. Jonathan was here at TIFF with All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, and he's also directed The Whackness. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to start with just your basic origin story of this film, because I know you guys have known each other for a while, and this story's pretty personal to you, is it not?
Yeah, the story's the inception of the idea. I mean, it all comes from I had cancer 6 years ago when I was 25, and at the time Seth was one of my closest friends, and probably my closest friend who I went through the ordeal with, and.
We've since grown apart.
Yeah, we've since grown apart. We
this movie really drove a wedge between us.
And you know, the way we dealt with it was we didn't sit around and talk about our feelings. I mean, we're 25 years old and we're comedy writers. We didn't sit around talking about our feelings. We just made jokes, and we sort of tried to make fun of the absurdity of the entire situation. And we one night we were at a party, and someone asked me if I had made a checklist, like a bucket list of all the things I wanted to do. And since I had cancer, which to them seemed like an incredibly logical question, since they had seen the bucket list and they figured that's what everybody does.
It worked out really well for them.
Yeah, and I was like, no, that's just not how it really works. Like, I'm actually really sick, and I would like to, I just want to sleep. I don't really want to go to Africa. And we started talking about it, and just how there's no comedy about, there had never been a comedy about cancer. And so that night we just started talking about well, why don't we do like a buddy comedy about cancer? And that was sort of the inception of the idea. And then once I got better, about a year later, Seth and one of our other producers, Evan Goldberg, they both urged me to write the script. And that's where it all came from.
And how did you get involved, Jonathan?
I had read the script probably about a year prior to getting on board. and I just finished the Whackness, and I was not really ready to jump into anything. Not that I even know if these guys would have had me, but in the subsequent year, I had a couple family members who were going through cancer, and luckily they turned out okay, but I couldn't get the script out of my head. So by that point, another director was attached, and I was really bummed out. And then that director fell off, and I made it a point to get in touch with these guys and let them know how much it would mean to me to do this. And I think when I sent you guys a letter.
Yeah.
Like originally when I read it, about how much I wanted to do it and how much it meant to me. So luckily, just through some sort of fate, I got to work with these guys.
I wanted to ask you all about calibrating the tone of this, because obviously it has to go from sort of outright comedy through a lot of phases, and then you have to arrive at a really emotional place at the end of the movie. That one little word, "Mom," that Joe says on the gurney right before, that just does everybody in. But you have to buy everything up until that point. It has to be funny, and then it has to be sad. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys managed that. Any one of you can jump in.
I mean, I think it really started with Will's script, so
I think for walking that line between the dramatic and the comedy, it's really just all about the characters and just staying true to them and never and always allowing them to be as honest and grounded as possible and never betraying that, even if it's for a joke. And I think that was something we also learned along the way through the process of making the movie when we shot it. I think that just walking that fine line of never going too far in either direction and just making sure it always felt real.
Yeah, I think the reality was really the grounding principle of it. And I had faith that the funny stuff would be funny because we had such amazing, wonderfully gifted actors. And the dramatic stuff, was so well rendered by Will's script that it never felt as much of a challenge as it might have. But it is also set in the editing room too. I mean, we tried a lot of stuff, and you find that tone sometimes when you edit too.
Yeah. Did a lot of stuff end up on the floor? Like, I imagine stuff at either extreme, more bathos, more raunchy humor,
No, that stuff pretty much made it in. Yeah. It was the stuff in the middle that didn't make it in. I mean, no, it was, the first cut was like 2.5 hours, and I looked at it and I said, that's awesome. I can definitely find a really good 90-minute movie in there. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor was sometimes when we would find ourselves straining for a joke. Some things that were inadvertently broader than we wanted them to be. But in general, I think it was a creative goal not to lose the kind of balls of the movie. Mm-hmm. So that stuff did end up in there.
Yeah. Seth, your character, he has to kind of observe the action, comment on the action, propel the action. He's not the main guy, but you're the source of a lot of the humor in it and the pushing of the envelope, using cancer to pick up girls and things like that. How did you make sure that your guy was never sort of too obnoxious to be believed, but also funny enough to make this funny?
The character's trying to be funny, so that gives you a lot of luxury as an actor, because not all the jokes need to land. Because just like in real life, some people are funny and all their jokes land, and some people, as I will now illustrate, are not always funny and not all their jokes land. And to me, the only line was like, how obnoxious can I be and still have the audience believe that Joe's character would hang out with this guy, essentially, and not just tell him to fuck off. That was really the line that I was kind of careful of, because there was times where I would kind of antagonize him so much that you would think he would just punch me in the face and never talk to me again. So honestly, that was really the balance, is how far could I push Joe's character really and still have it seem like a guy he would want to be around. But as far as the audience goes and pushing their limits, I mean, we try to do that, but we test the movies a lot, and it's not our goal to like put jokes in the movie that offend people. It might be our goal to do jokes that offend some people, but not all people. And so, we let the audience tell us, and if there's any joke that is, universally hated, we take it out of the movie. We don't leave it in to prove a point or something like that,
Yeah, let's see how we can make them
Exactly, yeah. It is funny, yeah.
Bryce, this movie opens September 30th wide. The Help is still in theaters. You're kind of the villainess of the summer, really, between those two. What's in it when you're playing the bad girl? What's the fun of that?
Well, I think we, or maybe this is just, I'm going to say it like it's a general thing, but maybe it is just me, but so I'll just personalize it. I mean, I spend so much time trying to be a conscientious person, and when you're given the freedom to just always make the horrible choice, it's really fun and really easy, actually. It's weird how your mind kind of naturally just goes there instantaneously. But yeah, I did this actually before I did The Help. And then I guess I just wanted a more extreme version. So then I did The Help.
We cut all the racist shit out of this.
I wasn't mean enough in this. I'm going to be a little meaner. Anna, you're sort of the go-to girl for sort of nervous, anxious, smarty pantses.
What?
Why do you say that?
Let's talk about this role and what made you gravitate like moth to flame.
I mean, to me, I liked that Catherine's confidence was always sort of hanging by a thread, and that, in fact, that confidence was not real at all. She's sort of projecting confidence, and I think I've played characters that have that tend more towards the thinking that they're hot shit. And the insecurity is kind of further back in their head, but I liked how kind of soft and vulnerable she was, and I think we've all been in a position of trying to sound like we know what we're doing, but suspecting that everybody can see right through it, and that was sort of sweet, and it was sort of cathartic for me coming off of like the Oscars, and I could relate.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny, nobody thinks about the therapist third patient. It's just such a funny number. Did that come from real life, or where did that come from for you? That he's the third, not the first, not the second, but.
I don't remember exactly where that came from. I think
found it comedically the most acceptable.
It was exactly. It couldn't. Joe's character couldn't have been the first.
Yeah.
That would have been too unbelievable. And the third just felt really like that was funny enough to be believable.
The third is funnier. I want to say 2 words to you, or 3 words to you, I guess, Seth. Hair cutting scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was actually, it was fun to shoot. It was a little scary because we improvised a lot of the dialogue in it, which is pretty fucking stupid, honestly, for a scene like that.
Yeah.
But
Right, reset. Let's go again.
but we did it, and because that was actually the first day of shooting, which makes it even stupider because we weren't like that comfortable with our characters or anything like that. But we wanted it to feel real, and we didn't want the fact that we could literally only do it once to make it feel less natural. So we really just tried to keep it loose. I didn't know what Joe was going to do, honestly. I don't know if he was going to start crying, or if he was going to make it really emotional, or if he was going to want to joke around. I mean, I really wasn't sure how he was going to approach it. And it was great how he did. It just felt totally real, and you could also tell that it's pretty intense, under the surface, but it really felt very natural. And I remember what we did have is a big list of bald guys, because we want to be able to reference funny bald guys. So we had like a big list of like Michael Stipe and Patrick Stewart and Gorbachev, other famous bald men. Jason Statham, I'm sure, was on the list.
Mr. Clean, I believe,
Mr.
was on
Clean,
there.
yeah. Yeah, that's what we went in armed with. A razor and a list of bald men.
Other than that. And what did you think of Joe's impersonation of you?
That wasn't scripted. It stung a little, but he had been secretly. That happens a lot on a movie where I'll be working with someone for months and then learn that they've been like secretly developing a really insulting impression of me the whole time.
I think it's pretty universal that
Yeah,
people
exactly.
do that.
I think it happens a lot. Yeah, he just did it, and I wasn't psyched about it, but people laughed, so we left it in.
Do you have one of him that you can trot out now as revenge?
Huh?
I said, do you have one of him?
I can't do an impression of Joe. He's like, no, I can't. I'm a normal guy.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to open it up to questions now. So generally, like, indicate to me that you have a question, and then we'll get the mic to you, okay? Uh-huh.
Hi, Sean Plummer from MSN Canada. A question for Bryce, actually. Bryce, you co-star in this, and of course you co-produce Gus Van Sant's Restless, which also has cancer as a plot device. Has your thoughts about cancer or how people can deal with it evolved from before making these movies until now?
Well, I mean, something that is kind of interesting is like with Restless, Jason Liu, the writer, it was also actually a very personal story to him, and a lot of that was based in his own experiences, and it was kind of like a reaction to like those Lifetime movies that are I don't want to like put them down or anything, because I'm sure they're very meaningful to the people who've done them, but they're
The Lifetime people are here.
but it's I think that those films are more centered around kind of the illness and what his approach was, which I found to be very similar when I was reading 50/50, even though they're totally different movies, is that kind of the illness or the struggle with the illness is in the background, and really what the movie is about is the relationships. And in this circumstance, it's a buddy comedy. With Restless, it's a romance. But I think that one way in which that became possible was because it's about young people dealing with illness, and there is so much life still, and they're still figuring out so many things, and so that's the correlation that I kind of made in my head that I found to be kind of interesting.
Anybody else? Anybody else out there? Yes?
Gloria Martin with 680 News in Toronto and National. For Anna, how did you balance your character's naivete with your professionalism to make her seem believable as you did so well?
Well, I guess, it did help that I'm allowed to sort of make mistakes and sometimes tip the balance too far in one direction or the other, because every time she gets too in her head and starts to think, what clinical advice can I give that will save the day here? That's not really helping anybody, and when she kind of clams up because she's not sure what to do, that's not helping anybody. So I was allowed to just be pretty bad at my job, which was nice. I think it's something everyone does when they walk out the door. I think sometimes I'm just doing a semi-convincing impression of a functioning human being. So.
I don't even do that.
Yeah, I know.
So I just tried to kind of project some understanding of what I was saying, and if I failed at that, it was okay.
Let's talk sort of just around the general concept of buddy comedy or bromance. Do we hate that word? Is it a valid genre? Are there tropes that have to be hit in the course of making one?
It's never a word I've used, honestly, except when saying, I guess, yeah, it's a bromance, sure. When reporters say, is this a bromance? You go, yeah, I guess, sure. I hadn't even heard the word until a few years ago. Maybe when we did Pineapple Express was around the first time I started hearing it. But I don't know. To me, it's like an invented thing. We never sit down and we're like, all right, a bromance. What do we need? We need weed. We need beer jokes. Like we never really thought of it like that. It was much more organically arrived at, I guess, than that. I mean, I was best friends with Will. He got sick. I was fucking useless. So it seemed like it would make a good movie.
Yeah, it is. In male friendships, very often to women anyway, they look like there's this, kind of primal. Everybody knows who the alpha dog is, and everybody falls in line. And there's, you bond over not saying things as much as you bond over saying them, and that's all kind of tricky when it comes to making a movie, where you have to have scenes in which people sort of talk to each other and feel emotions and stuff. So how did you guys, work on that?
Work on the balance of the alpha.
Yeah, what should be said and what shouldn't be said between them.
I think Seth's best performance in the movie that I remember is a scene that he's not actually in when Joe finds that book.
I'm unconscious,
I remember in my head, I'm like, Seth was so great in that scene, and I'm like, wait, he was not in that scene.
We would talk about that.
That was my way of telling Seth I know he loves me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I was so psyched. I was like, man, this is my whole emotional resolution, and I'm literally lying on a couch with my eyes closed. Like, I think I actually fell asleep when we were filming that scene. Like, this is it for me. It's so great. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even do that in real life. That's what I was saying to Will earlier. I was like, you had to invent something to make it seem like you should still be friends with me. I didn't even do that. I was just a dick. Yeah, I mean, I think we just used, again, the barometer of is this a conversation? I mean, not specifically that we had, but like, is it something like a conversation we would have had? And we never really got emotional. I mean, I never really sat Will down and tried to delve into what he was feeling or thinking, and it was always on the surface, and we would joke about it. We wouldn't shy away from it as a topic of conversation, but we would never get into the heavier side of it. It was always the joking side of it, Like we were talking about how we skipped the line for Batman Begins right after he got surgery, because I went up to the ticket guy and I was like, my friend just had cancer, he had surgery, we can't wait in this huge lineup for Batman Begins, and we got in for free and skipped the line.
We did.
And that was opening weekend too, so Batman Begins, that was a big movie, so you can imagine the line. That was more the tone of the type of the way we would deal with it, Not to say beneath that there wasn't real concern, and at that point, relief that Will was okay, but we would just kind of always joke about it.
I think also one of the other great things, one of the other great scenes is when you and Joe you're dropping Joe off at the hospital, and you guys are sitting in the car together, and there's just so much emotion kind of simmering beneath the surface, but it's two guys who can't say that to each other, but you can still feel it, because guys would not say anything to each other. At all.
Yeah, I think we shot a version where we said something a little more emotional, literally like, I hope you don't die, I think is what I said. And even that felt like a bullshit to us. A guy probably wouldn't say that. So, yeah, we kind of just left it as nothing.
Is this as mysterious to you two women as it is to me, that what guys can and can't say to each other? What was it like on the set for you with this energy?
Well, they weren't silent with one another. No, but it's playful, and I think there is a lot of vulnerability gets exposed in humor, inside of humor, and I don't think it is really, unless it's kind of angry humor. I feel like angry humor kind of masks something, but this kind of vulnerable, I don't know, dorky humor, I think reveals everything, and or goofy humor. But, I think that's wonderful, and it was fun. And I didn't know, I mean, this is a story that's so personal to Will, and even though so many of the events of the movie were fictionalized, I mean, he really went through this, and I didn't kind of know what the feeling was going to be like on set, and I'm really relieved that it was so fun, and that we were all really irreverent about the fact that he went through this the entire
I made it.
There's a question there. Yep.
Hi, Devin Scoble with Simpatico in Movies. I really hated when journalists preface their questions by saying how much they like the movie, and yet...
We don't.
Well, great, because I actually went to see it twice during TIFF, so that's how much I liked it.
Very much.
And I know exactly all the moments I cried twice. Particularly the scene where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is with Angelica Houston right before the doctor's about to come. I can barely even talk about it. But is there a scene for you, especially Will and Seth, that resonates with your experience, or, which scene catches your tears?
I think the scene for me that I think that I connect to the most is the scene in which Angelica Houston and Joe are in the doctor's office and they find out the bad news. But the exchange between Angelica and Joe, where he finds out that she's been going to a cancer support group, that's the moment. For me, just because every time I think about how difficult it was for my mother and how much I denied that at the time when I think that really gets me every time.
It's interesting. Watching it really did make me know how. It did give me more insight into what Will went through overall, which I think was just very interesting. The first time I realized that as I watched the movie, how, I don't know, because I'm an asshole again, if I never really imagined what it was like for him to sit in a doctor's office and be told that kind of thing, and I thought about it, but to see it portrayed in the movie really, and to imagine your friend in that position, really was, it kind of just shed a whole lot of light on the whole thing. But I don't know, honestly, that being said, the scene that is closest to something that actually happened in real life is the last scene in the whole movie where I'm changing the dressing on his scar.
He was my nurse.
Yes, that's word for word something that actually happened. That one scene could have been lifted from reality and just dropped into the movie, which is ridiculous, but that's how I reacted to that. I think I almost threw up on you.
He's a little squeamish. He doesn't like...
I'm very squeamish, yeah.
Yep.
Hey, this is Hyla from the Hollywood Five. For Will and Seth, I know this went down while you guys were writing on the Ali G show, so any reaction from Sacha Baron Cohen when this was going down, or maybe he's seen the film? And for Bryce and Anna, it's got to be really awkward cancer pickup line. So I'm just curious, any awkward pickup moments in your lives that you could share with us?
And that's from the Hollywood Five. I don't know. Sasha, we're still friends with him.
We're still close.
He's excited. He hasn't seen the movie yet, but he is excited to. He's happy Will's alive. Last I heard.
He's genuinely pleased with my survival.
Genuinely pleased with his survival. Mostly pleased with his survival. And I'm just going to excuse the girls from having to answer that pickup line question.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
I don't even know what that, I don't know what you meant.
Don't worry. You're off the hook. I let you off the hook. It doesn't matter.
How many times when we were on set did I try to use my cancer? How many times did that happen?
Only 6 or 7.
Seth, you're in another film at TIFF, obviously, this year, Take This Waltz, much more serious role, and we know you from Freaks and Geeks and the Apatow School of Comedy. Do you feel you're, wanting to move more in a dramatic direction? Are you happy with, what was it like to do a kind of big dramatic role in that movie?
It was interesting. Honestly, though, it didn't feel any different on a day-to-day basis. I think that's what's interesting about doing a dramatic movie is I literally approached it the exact same, and just when you watch the movie as a whole, you're like, shit, this is much more dramatic than my normal movies. But on a day-to-day procedural level, I always just try not to ruin the movie. That's my goal. So I didn't change that goal on that movie. But I don't know, and it's just coincidence, honestly. Yeah, Sarah Pauli's one of the only people ever to ask me to be in their movie, so I said yes.
See, all of you should write a movie for Seth now because he says yes. Does anybody else have a question at the moment? Yes?
Hi, Dave McGinn from the Globe and Mail here in Toronto. Jonathan, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned earlier that the reason, or sort of how you got on board, was people you know and love had dealt with cancer. When they asked, Jonathan, what's your next project? And you said, I'm actually going to do a comedy about cancer. Did that ever get weird?
It didn't get weird. It didn't get weird. But I think that it didn't get weird because I described, what was so wonderful about it and how, I think the idea about being so respectful to the spirit of the struggle. So no, it wasn't weird. I may not have described it exactly like that to them.
That would have been bad tactfully.
But yeah, and they've seen it and they like it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But they're related to me, so.
Yeah, there are his parents. So.
I did notice that you sort of, more of the jokes are around the circumstances of it, like how everybody wants to touch Joseph all the time and how, rather than the actual cancer itself, that's the stuff around what happens to your body, or like that wasn't joked about as much. It was more the social parameters. Yeah.
I think that's where the comedy, in my life came from. And with Seth and I and our friends, and even with my, certain family members. I mean, I think we would joke about the circumstances of it. We never joked about the actual cancer. That always gets a little weird.
There's no scene where there was like a boiling pot of water he had to get, but his tumor was too painful and he had to limp towards it. That would have been in bad taste. So we tried to avoid that. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, again, our rule was like, would this have happened? Even not did this specifically happen, but like, does this, like there was a scene where he was like shopping for coffins at one point in the script, and Will hates that I always bring this up as the scene we cut, but I mean, it was a funny idea and it was a funny scene, but it just didn't feel like anything it wasn't anything that Will did, and it just didn't feel like something you would do. So like, that's a good example of something that, maybe we were trying to find humor in that wasn't quite organic to the story, so we took it out.
Yeah, it could never be forced. It had to feel, the humor had to feel real to the characters and to the situation.
Anybody have a question at the moment? Did you ever encourage him to use his cancer to get girls?
Not specifically. I don't think I ever articulated it like that, but I think I encouraged him to get out there. I mean, I think if there's the biggest difference between how we are in real life and in the movie is it was never nearly that sexualized. I think our version of use this to get laid, honestly, was we would joke about it. Like, we would come up with fake movie ideas. Like, that was, I think more the sex is representative of like a desperate attempt to pull something positive out of the situation, which I did do, but I didn't have the confidence or ability to actually hit on girls at that point.
At that age, we were both too terrified of women.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also much more dramatically fertile than let's get into the front of this movie line.
Yes. It's easy to make jokes about, too.
Yes?
Again, question about Bryce's character, but something which all of you could probably answer. Do you think that she is a villain? Like, is it a bad? I mean, obviously, it's a bad reaction not to support someone in your life who's got a disease. But do you think that it's something that you would ascribe to villainy? I mean, I think it's something that is probably more natural than one would assume.
Wait, will you just kind of rephrase? Sorry, I was
That's
losing
awkward.
some words.
I'm just wondering if your character's reaction to Gordon's illness, Joseph's illness, is understandable at some level.
Well, I think that the way that I kind of thought about it was they'd probably been dating for about 3 months, and at that point she had already told all of her friends that she was going to break up with him. And especially when he said, here's this drawer in my house for you, she was like, oh, I really need to kind of like pull the plug on this relationship. And clearly they're not compatible. And so, like, in my mind, there was about another 5 to 7 days left of the relationship. And then he tells her that he has cancer. And I imagined in my mind what would a really immature person do? Somebody who didn't have good self-esteem and didn't have good models of relationships or whatever. Like, what would they do? And so she kind of feigned support and fucked around on him, and sabotaged the relationship. And then when she was found out, then tried to get him back because she didn't want that kind of a reputation, I mean, like, and was trying to kind of rewrite history. So I think that while I understand, when you're in your 20s, you're figuring out who the people are in your life who are really going to show up. And a circumstance like this, like having cancer, is definitely gonna pretty quickly define that for you. You know, who are the people who are your support group, and who are your people who don't quite cut it. And I think this brought out the worst in Rachel, and Joe's character really, you know, was able to identify pretty quickly that she wasn't right for him. But I don't know whether or not it's her actions are definitely not understandable. But I think that there are people like that where they're in a bad situation and they make the bad choice, you know, that they're not proud of.
Yeah, I think it's not that uncommon that kind of thing happens. I did a lot of research, and I read countless stories about people who, you know, either break up or people who cheat because they just can't handle the intensity of the situation. And, you know, for the character of Rachel, I mean, she's just been thrust into a situation that she just did not sign up for. So, I mean, I think I can empathize with her on a certain level. That doesn't mean that she's made the right choice, but, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think the important thing was to make it feel like it was real, you know, like that could happen.
Yes.
Hi, for Will, what aspects of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character made you want him to play this role?
What aspects of Joe as an actor?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think, I'm a huge fan of Joe's. I mean, I think he's made some incredible movies, and he has a lot of integrity about the roles that he chooses, and he has this great ability to just keep everything really grounded, and he he understands humor and drama so well, and I mean, I think it's a really hard line to walk, and I mean, he just does it so perfectly. I couldn't imagine another actor in that role. I mean, I think Adam, you know, Joe really made Adam his own, and I think it was perfect.
Lady in the front row has a question. Thank you.
Hi, Melissa Leong, National Post. On the opposite side of what moments really brought tears to your eyes, I wanted to ask which moments were the funniest? What scenes cracked you up? Which were the most fun to shoot?
I like the scene where I come in when Bryce and Joe are talking, and I come in with the cell phone picture and reveal her infidelity. I don't know. I just like scenes where people are screaming at each other, honestly. As an actor, that's my favorite thing to do, is scenes where everyone's just yelling and it's crazy. Yeah, I just think that's funny for some reason. So, yeah, I enjoyed shooting that scene a lot. I like yelling at Bryce. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
I have to agree. I think that scene really makes me laugh more than any other scene.
Yeah. I also like the scene in the bookstore where you're talking about Adam and how you take him out for walks.
I talk about him like he's a dog.
Yeah. I think that's the scene that had me laughing the most behind the monitor.
Your precious hair.
Ridiculous.
You talked about pushing the limits of your character, Seth, and I would say that the limit is probably when you drop the C-bomb. Did you do versions of yes or no with that, or is that the way that was always going to be?
No, I think, did we cover different versions of that?
No.
No, I don't think we did. Because we knew it was okay because she doesn't like me afterwards. That was our justification. Well, you can say that word if the girl hates it. It was kind of what we thought. And then in the next scene, I did feel a need to say the lie that the date didn't work out due to an overuse of profanity, which I'm sure is actually why many dates I've gone on have not worked out. But yeah, we also thought if there's one time to use that word, that's kind of the time to use it. So Will wrote it.
Anybody else have a question?
It felt like I could
No? I think that's probably a good line to end on then. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck with the film. Thank you all.